Hi everyone, welcome to the part 2 of Basics in Premiere Pro. This will be similar to part 1, but I'll go over intermediate stuff today. So here we see Premiere open. Usually in the middle of the screen, you would see your past projects. And on the left, as we know, new project, let's hit it, let's make it. So aside being able to name the project, give it a location and create a project, as we learned in the past part, you could select a pre-made template for a project, which I'll show you how to do in one of the next videos. So this thing in the middle basically is like a file explorer. See shortcuts to different folders on your computer and you can browse them right there. The idea being that you can use this screen to select folders, footage, and everything else that you would use in the project, therefore speeding up the process of your editing. Now, I personally don't really use this screen much. I just import the media later after I'm done making the project, but it's honestly a personal preference. On right here, you will see import settings. Honestly, I don't think anyone ever uses these. As you can see here, I have enabled create new sequence. And when we do make the project, nothing will happen. Let's make a project. I'll give it a name. I'll make a new folder on my desktop and I'll put it there. And let's hit create. So first things first, let's make sure we are on the same page. Go Window, Workspaces, Editing. Then go Window, Workspaces, Reset to saved layout. Okay, so what am I actually doing when I go Window, Workspaces, and everything else? Workspace is a collection of panels. Premiere comes with their own sets of panels like editing, effects, essentials. You can explore these pre-made workspaces by going Window, Workspaces, and then you just look them up. Now, if you only started using Premiere Pro and you've never made a workspace yourself, this screen right here will look a little different to mine, since I have made some custom workspaces for myself. So for example, let's look at this default editing workspace. You will notice some panels that are open, some are grouped right here, and you can browse them by clicking each one or using your scroll wheel. Not all of them will be useful to you at all times. And in video editing, screen space is a luxury, honestly. And the more screen space you can get and the more efficient you can make it, the more enjoyable the process of video editing will be and therefore more efficient. Now, if you want to know all the panels that are in Premiere Pro, you can simply go Window, and here's the list of all of the panels that you can open. I would suggest going online and reading up on each of these panels and what they do, what's their functionality, how they can be useful, but also simply play around with them in your own projects. Okay, so let's talk more about the project panel. This is a place where you keep all of your assets. So let's import some assets. So I will use the exact same assets as I've used in the previous part of this series. And if you want to follow along, just click the link in the description and you can download them. So I want to talk about the features of the project panel. First, a shortcut to full screening a panel that's currently selected. And you can tell if the panel is selected by this blue outline. So for example, if I click on the timeline, you can see the blue outline up here, and that's how I know it's the actively selected panel. So to full screen a panel, you can press the backtick button, which is the button right above the tab button on your keyboard and left of 1. Okay, it's full screen now. So aside from storing all of your assets, project panel can also be very useful because it's showing the metadata of your assets. So that means name, frame rate, resolution, and other useful information like that. Now you can notice that here we have media start, media end, media duration. This is not really useful information to us, but luckily we can customize it. So you can right click on any of the data type and go metadata display. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Most of it you will not use ever, but the actual useful ones are under Premiere Pro project metadata. You can expand that and there's a whole list of goodies in here. Okay, so let's unselect all of the properties by hitting this checkmark up here, and let's select data types that are actually useful to us. So we're talking frame rate, media duration can be useful, video info to show resolution. Okay, let's hit OK, and you can see how the display of data has changed. So we have frame rate, media duration, video info. Super useful. So to close the full screen of a panel, we again hit the backtick button and we're back to our workspace. Let's make a new sequence by pulling one of the clips onto the timeline. Speaking of the timeline and the sequence, what is a sequence? Think of it like this. Your assets are the building blocks of your video and your sequence is the construction site. It's the place where you put all these different assets and clips together, and it's a place that holds the final product basically. Whenever you drag a video onto the timeline to create a new sequence, a new item will appear in your project panel. So in my case, this is the item, and as you can see, it has the same name as the video that I used to create the sequence. And you can tell sequences apart from other types of assets in your project panel by this little icon over here. Every type of asset that you have stored in your project panel has its own icon and also the color. So you'll notice how, for example, videos that have no audio are colored purple. Sound effects and music are always colored green. Now, when it comes to your timeline, it's obviously split in the upper portion, which is for your videos, and in the lower portion, which is for your audio. So for today, I would like to tell you about a couple of buttons in the timeline, which you might find useful. So this one right here, the eye, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You can hide the entire track or uncover it again. This little log button, so basically when you press it, you can't make any edits on the assets that are put on the V1 line. And same goes for the audio tracks down here. There's a log button, but we also have this M, which is to mute the selected track, S to solo this track, and a little microphone so you can record audio. A couple of words on the program monitor. So aside from displaying what you are putting on the timeline, it also has some other functionalities. So we know we can double click on videos. So these little dots appear so that we can change the size and position, rotation of our clips. But let's say that for whatever reason we have oversized our video and we can't see the dots anymore. We can go here and we can change the size of the viewport. And now we can see the dots again. So this is simply just the expanded view of the program monitor. And in case your Premiere Pro is laggy for whatever reason, you can use this button right here to change the output quality. But if your Premiere Pro is laggy, honestly, I wouldn't suggest using this. There's a much better workflow, which is a proxy files workflow, which I'll show you how to do that in one of the next videos. Another thing that could come useful when it comes to program monitor is this button right here, which is the export frame. It literally just screenshots the current frame that you have in the program monitor. Now, if you happen not to have this icon for whatever reason, you can hit this little plus over here, find it, and simply pull it down into this lower frame, hit OK, and now you have it. Okay, so let's select this clip in the timeline so that we can talk about effect controls. Okay, so let's say we wanted to revert all the changes that we've made to our video. We can simply hit the little reset button. If you want to change the position of your video, you can also do it by changing these numbers over here. This is the X coordinates or the horizontal coordinates, and this is the Y coordinates or the vertical coordinates. But let's say you wanted finer control over how much these change. You can do that by clicking and holding control on your keyboard. And you will notice that the number changes in much smaller increments. And if you wanted more aggressive change, you can hold down shift. And the same principle applies for every property that you can find in the effect controls. So let's say you wanted to change the scale, but you can't get it quite right because, you know, like this is very erratic. This is a lot of change. Click, hold control on your keyboard. And yeah, that's a lot more manageable now. Anchor point is a very interesting feature. You can think of the anchor point as like the center of your clip. You can also see the anchor point in the program monitor on the clip itself. It's this little cross in a circle in the middle of your video. Let's change the location of the anchor point by grabbing it in the program monitor and moving it to the left over here. Watch what happens when we change the scale now. So it's like it goes into the anchor point. Let's reset everything. And again, let's bring the anchor point to the side. Let's change the rotation now. So it uses the anchor point and rotates around it. Let's talk about the FX panel now. The very first folder you'll see is the presets folder. Now, if it's your first time opening Premiere or you just began using Premiere, you probably won't have a lot of presets in here. I would highly suggest going online and finding presets. My only advice would be don't just get random presets. Filling this folder up for no reason won't make you a better editor and will only make this folder right here so much harder to navigate. You can also make your own presets, which is something I'll talk about in another video. Okay, let's expand video effects. I understand that these 20 folders that just popped up can be a little overwhelming. My honest advice would be just go folder to folder, try each effect, play around with it, see what it does. Let's say you were interested in blur and sharpen, and let's say you were like, oh, what is Gaussian blur? Honestly, even after 5 years of editing, I still don't know how to read Gaussian blur. Gaussian? Okay, so let's apply this effect to our clip to see what it does. You can do this either by dragging it down onto the clip itself that's in the timeline, or you can drag it also right here onto the effect controls panel. Let's see what happens when we change blurriness. Our video becomes blurry. Self-explanatory, and I'm definitely planning on making a video on each effect and how it can be useful. Okay, lastly, super quick, the tools panel. Okay, just one note, you'll notice that some of the tools also have these little small arrows right next to them. That means that this tool can be expanded for additional tools or variations of this tool. So let's say we wanted to see what the variations are to the text tool. We click and hold, and you can see that the variation of the type tool is vertical type tool. When you select that, and now you can type text vertically. Do this for each tool, see what I do.